talking about singles and relationships, but I will talk about it does fit in really with long-term relationships. It's a very, very important topic because actually today there's a crisis in relationships. People are not meeting, people are not staying together, and people are not committing. More and more people are asking, how do I find a partner? And there are lots of different new innovative ways that people are trying to find Mr. Right or Miss Right, but it isn't really helping the statistics. We have another big problem today, and that is how to collect statistics, because in the old days when people got married, you had singles and you had marrieds, and you knew from the marriage registry how many people were married, and so you had a statistic. Today we have all kinds of relationships, and I've learned this from my practice. When people call me now, I always ask about a partner. So a few years ago, let's say a woman would call and she'd say, I'd like to come to talk to you with Fred about my relationship, and I'd say something about her husband, and she'd say, he's not my husband, he's my partner. So I've stopped using the word husband, and I now know that until I meet a couple and I actually talk to them, I have no idea about the configuration of the relationship. So it's very hard to gather statistics on relationships anymore. You have people who are married, you have people who are de factos, you have people who live in one home, you have people who commute across cities, you have people who blend their families, you have people who don't blend their families, and so it's no longer a simple matter. And therefore, I'm not even going to try and give you statistics, but I can tell you that what I have been reading over and over, it seems like in our generation, something like nearly 50% of people will remain single. And what I think remaining single means is that they are not in a committed relationship. That's how high it is. So the first thing, before one can even think about a relationship, is what do you want? And again, today it's very difficult. You know, before you used to go into a coffee shop and order a cup of coffee. Now it's a nightmare. Do you want long black, short black, skin cap, light fat, large, medium, small, soup? It just, you know, what do you want? It's not so simple. And what I'm going to show you tonight is that so much about finding the right relationship and staying in the right relationship is actually about you and not the other person. It's mostly about you and not about Mr. or Miss Right. So that's the first thing. What are you looking for? And many, many people that I work with tell me, I just want to have fun. I've heard this expression over and over again. And then I work with people in their 30s, mid-30s and late 30s, men and women, who suddenly find they're not in a relationship, they're lonely, they've spent 20 years of their life having fun, whatever that means. Often it's very much related to drugs and drinking on the weekend, wild parties, more about that I'm finding than actual even having relationships. And suddenly you're 38 and you've said, well, I've had all my fun, and what do I have to show for it? So you need to think about what it is that you want. And if you want a long-term meaningful relationship, then you've got a chance. Because already your head is in the right place. Already you're thinking about, I need to plan for this, and I need to now find the skills to aim for a long-term relationship. But if what you say is, I just want fun, then you're going to find someone who also just wants fun. So for example, and this is one example, I'm not talking about anybody you know, so don't try and guess who it is. These are all amalgamated stories, but they're all based on true stories. You'll have a young girl who's 23 and she meets a guy and she just wants fun. After a year or two, she just moves into his flat and they're having fun. And then they go overseas together and they're having great fun. And then she's 28, 29, her biological clock is ticking, and she says, I want something more. And he says, I didn't sign up for this. I thought we were having fun. And she doesn't want fun anymore. So she had her fun. Maybe it's changed now, and maybe he's not going to be the person that she can move on with. But if you're telling the person that you meet, I just want fun, then that's what you're going to get. But if you're telling the person, look, I'm looking for something serious, I want a meaningful relationship, then you've got a chance that that's going to happen. But if you're giving one message and wanting the other, it's not going to work out. Now, having a good relationship is not new. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We all think when we're young we know it all. It's interesting when you have adolescent children, they think you're really dumb. They think you have no idea about relationships and intimacy and things like that. But actually it's been around forever. And there are lots and lots of formulae, which we're going to go through tonight, that contribute to meaningful relationships. You don't have to dream it up yourself. You don't have to work it out yourself. You really will find that most of the answers are there if you just tap into them. So we're going to go through some of the formula today that will help you know what will give you that meaningful relationship that you want. So this is the first one. Might sound pretty obvious to you, but doesn't seem obvious anymore. I don't know if any of you heard me speak a while ago at a J Junction function, and somebody asked me this: why do we need a commitment? There were about 200 people in the audience, and I actually took a minute to think, is he serious? He really wanted to know, why were we talking about commitment? So as the slide will show you, you cannot build a house on shaky ground, and you cannot build a relationship on shaky ground. How do you develop trust when there's no commitment? How can you build on something? How can you give your heart to somebody who's not telling you there's a tomorrow? It's impossible. If I said, please come and work for me, I'm not offering you anything. Just move into my office, work for me 24/7. I really want you to be keen and give your whole self to me. In about 5 years, I'll let you know if I'm ready to give you a long-term commitment. You think I'm crazy. You would never start a job without a contract or a commitment. Why do we start our relationships like that? If there's no commitment, if there's no promise for a future, that relationship is on shaky ground. And it doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. It isn't like suddenly after 3 years, oh, now we're going to have a commitment and it's going to work. It doesn't work like that because often the trust is eroded and it's very hard to get it back. So if you want the meaningful relationship, there has to be a commitment. There has to be monogamy. It's just you and me. And second of all, this isn't a trial and if you work out, it's I will commit to making this work. I will commit to moving forward with you. That's what a commitment is. The second point is, if you want something to happen, be proactive. Now it's very interesting because we live in a world of entitlements. People often say, don't I deserve? Aren't I entitled? These are my rights. So people sit back and they wait for their entitlements. So let's say they're in a relationship, they've now met somebody, they're sitting back to wait and see what the other person is going to do. And what happens sooner or later is demands are being made. I want more love. You should give me more time. Why don't you remember my birthday? Whatever it is, okay? Now, the truth is that if you want a loving relationship, you need to be proactive to make that happen. You can't sit back and wait and see, is it going to happen? You've got to be very proactive in creating the world that you want. You want a romantic lifestyle, you book the restaurant, you light the candles, you be affectionate, you give a call and show interest. Be proactive, don't worry about what your rights are, rather think of it as your responsibilities. What can you give to this relationship? And you will have a chance that you're going to get what you want. The law of investment. If you don't invest, there's no return. Again, it seems to be a generational thing. Don't we live in a generation where people don't save? They work a bit, make money, go overseas, move in with mom and dad, work a bit, go overseas, come back, move in with mom and dad. I'm not talking from experience, but this is very much what people are doing. They're not saving, they're not buying homes. There's very much live for the moment, and we're back to let's have fun. Now, relationships are very much like a long-term bank account, the old-fashioned savings account. You put a little bit away every single week, and when you need some money, it's there, and it's grown. If you don't invest in a relationship, when you want to make a withdrawal, there's nothing there. So what does that mean? It means if you're the person that's sitting back and wanting to be looked after and demanding that your needs are met, you're not investing in the other person, you're not investing in the future, then when the time comes and you really want something, there's nothing there. The other person is barren. The other person has nothing to give because you have taken so much from them. Relationships take time. They take investment. Give support. Go out of your comfort zone. Make it worthwhile for the other person to be with you. And it comes back to you when you need to make the withdrawal, that investment pays off. Now, this is what I call the law of reflection. This means that whatever you give out comes back to you. So again, this is the idea that if you're proactive and you go first, what you do will come back to you. So if you demand love and you keep telling somebody, you don't love me enough and you don't give me this and this is what I want, it doesn't make the other person say, oh, I love you. It makes the other person go, oh, I can't live with all these demands. But if you give out love, it comes back to you. I'll give you a simple example. Try this. The next time you go out for dinner with your friends, you know there's that moment when no one's sure who's going to pay. You haven't really discussed, are you paying for yourselves? Is somebody treating? Are you splitting the bill? There's that moment. Now, you just tighten your hand over your purse. No one even has to know, and you tell yourself, I'm not paying. You'll see that no one will pay. The whole table will sort of tighten their purse. The next time you go, do the opposite. As that moment arises, you say, it's on me. And suddenly everyone will be arguing, no, it's on me. No, you paid last time. No, please let me pay my share. Because when you go first and you give, people want to give. Try it any time. Stand at the side for someone at the door, they'll say, no, you go first. Push your way through the door, they'll say, wait, don't push it in front of me. That's how it works. That's the law of reflection. So the more you give out, you don't actually lose, the more that you get. Now the key to giving out is that you don't always give what you want, you give what the other person wants. So it doesn't mean that you give A and you're going to get A back. You think about the other person and you think, I know that they would like me to make a romantic dinner. And so you give the other person what you know they would like. Unbeknownst to you, in their deep unconscious, they've registered it, and this natural law of reflection kicks in. And the next day, the other person thinks, I know that B likes me to unload the dishwasher, and unloads the dishwasher. So it's not dishwasher for dishwasher and plate for plate, but it's a sense of you go first, you try and please the other person, and the law of reflection is you get back what you actually need. So the more you demand and the more you think you're entitled and the more you fight for your rights, often the less that you get. The more you give and care about the other person and what they want, if you're dealing with a healthy, normal person, it comes back to you. Now this is a big one, because often people feel, when I find Mr. or Miss Right, I'm going to be whole. They are going to make me feel so special. I'm going to feel beautiful. I'm going to feel loved. I'm going to feel secure. I'm going to have all the things I ever wanted. I just need this other person to complete me. That is very dangerous. Why? Because if you're not complete, nobody can complete you. And what starts to happen after a while, when sort of the lights dim and that intensity goes, is you back to your old insecure self, and often blaming the other person for it, and the other person is often angry. I can't make you feel beautiful. I can't make you feel better about yourself. You become a liability. So one of the best things you can do if you want a meaningful relationship is get yourself together. Become a whole person as much as you can. Learn to like yourself even if you're on your own. Learn to like the way you look, even if no one's telling you you're gorgeous. Learn to believe in yourself. So that this person in your life is there to enhance your life, not to fill you up and to make you feel better. Very, very important. Otherwise, you become like a person in a wheelchair. Somebody dependent that needs to be carried around. And after a while, it's not pleasant. Just like you should not get involved with someone who needs to be carried around. Because that's not an equal relationship. That relationship can't work. So often if you're the caregiver, it's a great feeling. You meet someone who needs you and who tells you, gee, I never felt like this before. You're the only person in the world that makes me feel secure. Oh, what a burden. Because what's going to happen the one day you don't say the right thing? What's going to happen when you're busy and you can't give the attention? What a burden. So you don't want to be pushing the wheelchair and you don't want to be in the wheelchair. You don't want to be dependent. You want to be enough of a whole person that you can enhance someone else's life and they can enhance yours. So now we've spoken about what you need to bring to a relationship, and all you're missing is one piece. You're not looking for Mr. Right or Miss Right to fill your whole world. You're a whole person. You know what you want. You know what you want out of life. And he or she is just going to come to complete your life. And there's nothing shameful about it. We live in a generation where people are often embarrassed to say they want to be in a relationship. People are afraid of dependency. Even in my work, people will often come for therapy and they'll say, I'm so embarrassed that I'm here. I know I should be solving this on my own. No, we are social beings. We need each other. It's a normal need to want a life partner. Nothing wrong with it. It's normal. Don't be ashamed of it. It's a wonderful thing to find your soulmate. But they are there. This is one piece in your life. They cannot be your whole life. So what do we need? What should we be looking for? And I put chemistry. Chemistry has to be there quite soon after meeting. If there's no chemistry, in my experience, in my 30 years of experience, giving away my age now, in all my experience, you cannot create chemistry. It's very frustrating when you're dealing with a couple and it just isn't there. It just isn't there. It's something that is there or isn't there. And I can't actually, it's mystical. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you what it is, what attracts one person to another. Nobody knows. That's why it's very hard to make a match, because you don't know who's going to hit it off. But for yourself, if the chemistry isn't there, even if people tell you don't worry, work at it, it'll happen, it's unlikely to be there. Chemistry isn't everything, but it's a very important part. Attraction and chemistry. So if it's there, it's a good start. We now know that besides chemistry, the biggest predictor of success is having similar values. And as Stephen Covey says, values should be based on principles. So I'll tell you what this means. He says a very important thing, and that is that in this world there are universal principles that we all know to be correct. And how do we know it? We have a moral compass. When we do something wrong, we all know. He uses words like right and wrong. I know we live in a world where it's politically incorrect, where everything should be okay. But we all know when something isn't okay. It's fine to say that being kind is better than being cruel. We all know when someone's cruel, it's not okay. And we all know when someone's generous, it's a good thing. That's what your moral compass tells you. So you need life values that are based on universal principles. You can't pick a value like, my value is to, I don't know, suck someone's blood every week. It's not like that. It's a value of goodness and kindness. Well, there are people like that have created these kind of value systems about what's important. It can't be that. It's got to be based on some kind of real premise of kindness, goodness, integrity, honesty, fidelity, and so on. When you've got similar values, your relationship will stay together, because once the passion has subsided, this chemistry is still there, but it's shared values that keep you together. Values like family, values like monogamy, values like quality time spent together. Those kind of things keep you together. If you don't have those values, they're not going to stay together. Very, very important. So similar values are a major predictor. There are very subtle ones today that have created a lot of conflict, and I'll mention them because they're the kind of things that I hear quite a lot. So for example, there's a lot of grey areas today of what monogamy means, and when someone actually isn't being faithful and when they're not. So for example, with the advent of the internet, there are all kinds of things that are available. On SMSs today, there are all kinds of things that are available. People working with secretaries and becoming very close to their secretaries. You have to discuss this together. You have to bring it out into the open and have shared values. Because often I have a couple who are sitting together, I'm dealing with one now, and her husband's gone into a business. It's a fashion business, and the woman that runs it with him is, in the wife's terms, a Greek goddess. She's gorgeous. And the wife isn't happy. They travel together to Melbourne, they travel overseas to buy fabrics. She doesn't like it. She feels he's spending more time with her, with this woman, than with herself. This is a tricky one. Is he being unfaithful? Maybe not in the true sense of the word. But she says when she phones and they're in Hong Kong and they're having a dinner together at a fancy restaurant, it really bothers her. You need to have similar values. Those are the kind of things that tear you apart. I'll tell you another one that comes up a lot, and that is things like cleanliness and orderliness. Now, any of you who've lived with people and family members who have a different standard, it can be very, very difficult. And I have to tell you, for a long time, I didn't have a judgment on this matter. But I've heard about it a lot lately, and reading Covey's latest book made me decide I'm going to say there's a better and a worse way of doing it. And so I did a group recently of young couples, and I asked them, if you walked into a hall tonight, if we walked into this hall, and there were towels strewn all over and books lying, and we were tripping over old food, we would all intrinsically feel not nice. I don't think any of us would say, this is good. This is as good as a tidy, clean hall. It's fine to live in this filth. So when I hear couples arguing now, I say, no, there is a better way. We're not talking about being obsessively clean, but we're talking about there is a better way, and being orderly and being clean is actually a better way. So that's my new thing now. I'm actually saying I've realized that it does make a difference, and it does help couples to have similar values. We want an orderly home. We want to bath every day. We want the laundry to be in the laundry bin. That's okay. It is a better way. And how do you know? Because if visitors come and you're running around tidying up and you don't want them to see the mess, then somewhere you know that that's the better way. When I talk about these principles, we talk about them as being self-leadership principles. They're principles that guide you in life. When you have to make a decision, when you have to know how to treat somebody, you go according to these principles. So these are the kind of principles we're talking about. Being kind to one another, being generous to one another, being responsible for one another. It's not about I'm in this relationship and I don't have any responsibilities. Striving for excellence. This is a good thing. Being reliable, not letting each other down. Persevering at the relationship. Don't give up as soon as there's an argument. Don't give up as soon as it's a bit tough. Persevere. And having integrity. Be honest. Always be honest. Now, opposites attract? Yes, when it comes to personalities. Not when it comes to values, but when it comes to personalities. So the common one I can give you is you talk about an introvert and an extrovert. A more bubbly personality and a quieter personality can really complement one another. It sometimes works quite well. One's more of the chatterbox, the other one sits quietly. Those kind of personalities can go very well together. Even the thinking styles can sometimes be a bit different and complementary. If one person's a bit more abstract and one's a bit more concrete, as long as there's mutual respect, it can work quite well. If you're humble enough to say, you know what, you're better at this, help me with this, it can work in a really, really good way, as long as it doesn't become competitive. So personalities can definitely be complementary. They do not have to be the same. However, interests, you need at least one shared interest to keep a marriage going or to keep a long-term relationship going. You don't need lots, It's great if you've got your own life, but you do need to have something that you do together. And when you've been together a long time, it's really important to make time to be with each other. And it's easier if you're doing something that you both enjoy. It could be something as simple as watching TV or going to movies. Now, one couple, they go to eat sushi every Sunday night. That's their thing. Doesn't sound huge, but it's something they both enjoy together. If you've got more, very nice. But if you have no shared interests, in the beginning, it seems great. You know, if you love jazz and he loves classical, in the beginning it's exotic. And you go along because you're so in love, and you sit through the classical, and you think it's so nice just to be here. After 2 years, you never want to go again because you didn't like it to start with, and you're only doing it because it was new in the relationship. So if there's nothing and you're living totally different lives, it really doesn't work. A couple that I'm dealing with, she's an absolute fitness fanatic. She exercises something like 6 hours a day. And he's a couch potato. So no surprises when after 2 years they're not getting on, because all weekend she's out doing triathlon and he's sitting at home watching TV and eating chips, putting on weight which she doesn't enjoy, but they have no time together. So it's easier if you both have something you do together, you're cycling together, or you're running together, or eating sushi together, it doesn't matter, but that there's at least one thing that you do together. Now, this one I think says it all. Have realistic expectations. Now, you can read the slide any way that you want, but I thought Shrek was much happier when she became an ogre just like him. Because that's who he is. He didn't really fit into the palace, did he? Now, what happens with us is we have unrealistic expectations. We feel we have to find Prince Charming or Miss Perfect. And unless they're absolutely Princess Fiona, we can't be happy. And many, many people are not finding their soulmate because they're looking for a princess when they are just an ogre. I don't mean this in an offensive way. I think Shrek is great. Know who you are. Be realistic. Get somebody like you. Because that's who you're going to get on with the best. And really, Princess Fiona's not really looking for you anyway. She's looking for Prince Charming. Okay. Forgiveness. No relationship can survive without forgiveness. Frequent forgiveness. We all make mistakes all the time. And if you hold on to grudges and if you don't let go of things, that relationship cannot last. Forgiveness is a wonderful thing. Forgiveness means that you actually allow a person to be a human being. You give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, it doesn't mean that you forget. If the person you're with is a shocking driver and continually bashes your car, you don't have to keep letting them drive your car. You're stupid to forget. You hold on to the keys and you say, well, I don't hold any grudges. Sorry, you can't drive my car anymore. That's fine. You don't have to forget. But in your heart, you don't hold resentment. You say, that person did the best they could with the tools that they had. And this is a very serious thing, to really be aware of what forgiveness means. It doesn't mean that you don't know what happened. And it doesn't mean you don't pretend it didn't happen. It means you say, that person did the best they could. Maybe at that moment, they didn't have good judgment. Maybe at that moment, they were thinking of something else. Maybe they were worried. Maybe they're immature. Maybe they don't have good coordination. It's very rare that somebody deliberately goes out to hurt you, especially the person that's supposed to love you. It's very, very rare. So I'll give you a frequent one that I hear a lot, and that is forgetting birthdays. It tends to be more on the male side, but I don't want to be accused of being anti-male, as I was recently. I'm not anti-male, I just pick whatever example comes to my head, and this one is about forgetting birthdays. So what happens is a male forgets his partner's birthday, and she gets very upset. And she will say things like, he knows it's my birthday, and he still forgot, implying that he woke up in the morning and he said, I know it's her birthday, but I'm not going to remember. Or she will say, he really knows how to push my buttons. Like he woke up in the morning and said, now how to annoy her today. The poor guy is a male. And it seems to be a universal thing. I don't know why it's about birthdays. I'm not a social anthropologist, but it seems to be a common male thing. So you forgive him, you say he's just a male. That's what he does. We can turn it all around with a female thing, something that women do. We all do. We nag, we talk too much, we tell stories in details, whatever it is. It's about saying, give the benefit of the doubt. That's what females do. She's not being like this because she's horrible to me. She's not being like this because she's an evil human being. That's who she is. We all make mistakes. We all are irrational at times, impulsive, don't think clearly, our mind's somewhere else. You've smashed the car. It's a smashed car. That's what forgiveness is. Now, this is called the law of the harvest. It's not my terminology, it's Stephen Covey. And basically what it talks about is that if you look at farming, you learn that you cannot plant a seed today and have a harvest tomorrow. The law of the harvest means that the natural way is that things take time. And he actually discusses a particular potato harvest. So I used to think harvests just take 1 year, but very important potato harvests can take up to 3 years. Clearing the ground, preparing the ground, feeding the ground, planting the potatoes. It's a whole big thing. You have to trust me on this. It's a 3-year project. Now relationships are even longer. They don't happen overnight. But if you keep investing like we spoke about before, if you keep going first, if you keep giving out what you want to come back, you will find with perseverance you will have a relationship that gets better and better. In our generation, people often start at the top. That's the best they ever had. We met, our eyes hooked up, we were one, we understood each other, it was the best. Not a single argument happened. And then 6 months down the line, it wasn't like that anymore, and I thought I'd better move on. Oh, those early days. We start at the top, and it feels like it's downhill after that. The truth is, it isn't like that. When you work hard in a relationship, it should get better and better. The reason being that you're setting the ground and you're working, and the law of the harvest is that all the investment and all the work is you will reap at the end. But it will never be an overnight thing. It takes time and it takes investment. So don't be afraid of putting in that investment. Know that the natural law of things is that things do not happen overnight, which again is very hard in our microwave age, where everything is happening overnight, like this. Gone are the days when you cooked a good stew that took, all day, a good challenge. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it's quick. You microwave it, it happens in a second, and we think everything's going to be like that. Relationships are really not like that. Now, just like you need to have a commitment, you need to have mutual goals that you're working towards. If there's nothing to work towards, the relationship becomes very, very empty. If it's just every day you're getting up, coming home, watching TV, eating dinner in front of the TV, eating the same dinner that you bought at the corner shop on the way in front of the TV, going to sleep at 10 o'clock, and there's nothing to look forward to, your relationship will become very, very stagnant. And that is why, again, in the old days, people got engaged, they got married, they had children, they then looked forward to their milestones of their children, they bought a house, they paid off the mortgage. These were all normal developmental milestones that people were working towards. Today it doesn't work like that anymore. You meet, you sleep together, you move in together, then you talk about a relationship, and then you're not sure if you're ever going to buy a home together because you're not sure where the relationship is going. You've never spoken about children, you don't know if that's on the agenda, and so it's very backwards, frontwards. I'm not really sure how it works, but it's sort of very wrong way around. Really, you need to have something that you're going to work towards. You need to know we have a future together. These are normal developmental milestones that we should be going through. You can choose your own. You might say, look, I don't want marriage, or I don't want this, but you still need to have things, build a house together, work towards something together, work towards some long-term project that will hold you together. Don't be afraid of living. I think many people today are afraid of commitment because they're actually afraid of living. One of the reasons, I think, is that we live in a world, which I'm very much a part of gurus, where we've lost trust in our own intuition, where we've lost trust in the wisdom of older people. We don't think that anyone who's older than us has anything to offer. So we turn today to younger people to show us how to work the latest technology. No wonder it's a scary place when you're asking a 16-year-old how to use your latest machine. We don't have a trust in life. We don't feel we know how to get there. I see it a lot in the work that I do on parenting. People have no idea how to bring up children. They feel, my parents are old-fashioned, so I don't want to do it their way. I don't trust my own intuition, so let me read a book and try and find out how to do it from there. So many people I mix with say, I'm scared to have children, I don't think I'm going to because I'm going to mess up. People are afraid of living, the same with relationships. I don't want to get married because there's so many divorces, I'm afraid of divorce, I'd rather not get married. And so they're not living. They're living single lives on their own. They go to work, coming home, sitting in front of the TV, eating their fast food dinner in front of the TV, but on their own. The life can be like a cruise. There's so much to be done on a cruise. Yes, in some ways, you are out there with the elements. Sometimes it'll be calm, it'll be enjoyable, you'll be able to lie at the pool. And other times there'll be gale force winds and you'll go downstairs and you'll be a bit shaken up. But there is a captain and there is direction and there is a vessel that will protect you. And that's all symbolic of the people around you and the wisdom around you that will help you. Don't go on the cruise, you're missing out on life. Rather jump in, take a chance, turn to that wisdom that is around you. Perfect yourself. Work on being a giving person, work on being a whole person, and you will attract exactly the kind of person that you want to you, and you will keep the person that you want with you. I wish you all lots and lots of luck in all your relationships. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Renee. Now, if anyone wishes to ask any questions, please feel free now to ask away. And there's still some tea and refreshments to those that wish to have, but right now will be a question session.
Right. Something that it seems to missed out all these slides is humour. It's hardly mentioned in that.
You're quite right. What's missing in the slides is humour. It's a very good question. And I'll take that on board and I'll add it because humour is a very important thing in a relationship. But it's important to be able to laugh at yourself, not at the other person. That's right. It's absolutely important that often we have to realise how funny we can be, how ridiculous what we're doing is. True. And being able to laugh together is very important. Thank you. Very important. Any other questions?
Yes, Renee.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the talk. You were talking about, doesn't it need to be reciprocal? So if I'm committed to this personal growth and I'm committed to tending to the garden of our relationship, doesn't my partner also need to invest similarly? Don't they need to be met halfway? And this last point from, do your bit. Yeah, I'm just thinking, you get what you give, but it's not, I so don't like that.
No, I'm just taking pictures.
I'm just thinking, what if that's just so uncomfortable. I'm just thinking, when you're flogging a dead horse, okay, and it could be, I come from Russia and I know very well how to roll my sleeves up and keep working and keep working, keep working. Doesn't the other person have to meet you and work as well? Because you can always think, well, I'm not working enough, or I didn't cook the right type of stew. Maybe I should have left it on the boil a little bit longer. When you actually look at them and ascertain their
It's a
efforts.
very, very good question, because the question is more about when are you flogging a dead horse and what if you're giving out all the time, shouldn't it be reciprocal? So the word, that's right. So a shared value, a work ethic is a shared value. So you would very quickly pick up if you're with somebody who is just on the take. I'm not saying you're saying this, but if you have a balance sheet and you're counting out what someone else is giving, it actually stilts what's happening. But if you take responsibility to just be giving and loving, if you're dealing with a normal person, it will come back to you. If you're dealing with a normal person with a normal value system. I don't know, I'll share this with you. It's a really good book. It's called The Surrendered Wife. No one likes the title because it implies, this weak, controlled wife. But it's really, really a good book. What she's talking about is sometimes a wife needs to surrender control. And she gives an example of being married to a man where she had to micromanage her husband. So she ended up doing everything. She was working, bringing in some income. She would pay the bills because otherwise the electricity would be cut off. She'd have to tell him how to treat the children, and she was exhausted. And she worked out that she was actually going to treat her husband like a normal person who could actually carry his responsibility. And what she came out with is a formula that she tried, and she now has groups all over America, and it's been validated by thousands of women. What she did was she said to her husband, I trust that you're perfectly capable of managing paying the bills every month. And she never said it again. And she said the electricity was cut off once. And when she stepped back, she did other things that she felt was giving and loving. He stepped into the breach. It took about 6 months, and he stepped into the breach, and he took up what he needed to do. So sometimes micromanaging, which is different, it's not giving and being generous, does stunt the other person. And what she found was about stepping back and allowing the person to come into who they are is also very helpful. But she starts off with exactly what I'm saying. The person's got to be normal. And there are very few things. They can't be abusive. They can't lack intelligence. I mean, really mean like lacking intelligence. They can't have really been from a deprived home where they don't know how to give. But most other people are pretty normal. And in the right environment, if they're not being checked, it does come back.
Sorry guys, but I'm single, I'm in my mid-30s, and I just had a conversation with a couple of girls. We had a shiur on the weekend, and there was about 10 girls there, and we're looking at the men, like I'm happy to step back, I'm happy not to pay for dinner, but we'll both be sitting there looking at the bill for an hour. So when are the men going to step up? And that's what's happening at the moment, that the men don't want to step on your high-heeled toes or your pedicured toes. So you want to contribute, so you meet them halfway, and so you don't really know, is that a man or a boy in a man's suit? You don't know.
So what is the expectation of the evening?
I think, well, for this person, this woman, I like traditional values in the male, and the modern day values are you're equal to a man, so you should meet me halfway.
So I would say that if there's so maybe the first time if it's uncomfortable, you pay. But what if there's a second date, there's nothing wrong, and that's where you check out the values, where you would actually say, look, I prefer traditional values, can we continue the relationship that way? And you have a discussion about it. So a real example, a client that I had, she met a guy on RSVP or something recently, and the first date they met at Circular Quay, and she said to him, because we discussed this, and she said to him, I actually want to be collected from my unit. And he said, fine. And now he collected from the unit. So if a person is normal, intrinsically, most people are comfortable with traditional values. Everyone then knows what's expected. What you're describing is a problem, and I know when I was involved in J Junction, we spoke about whether we should write a list, that's how bad it is, of what people should do on a date. Because the guys would often say, we don't know. Should we offer to pay, or are we treating them like dependent women? If we don't offer to pay, are we seen as ungenerous? If we go out for dinner, do I have to pay dinner for a blind date? It's like all this etiquette now, people just don't know how to be. So I would say after the first time, You should say exactly what you want, and you will see whether that person can step up to it or not.
Sorry, just one last question.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys. And regarding the first time, like, don't you think the man should ask the woman out? And I've got a lot of single female friends who have not been asked out for a date in more than 6 months.
No,
You don't?
no, not at all.
You don't think so?
No.
So you
It
think?
should be a matter of staying forthright.
So you think?
It depends on the individual case. You can't generalise something like that and say the man should always ask.
I'm not saying should. I'm just interested why I have a lot of single female friends, and in 6 months, a lot of them have not been asked out for a date.
Because there are more heterosexuals in the cultural community than there once were. Men are not in that dominant macho position as they once were. The role of a man has changed.
Yeah, of course. So therefore, the women are becoming emasculated, and they're the ones that are asking for the date, and then he wants to be picked up at his unit.
I think, this is why we do live in such confusing times, why people are so afraid of life. But seeing that we are in this context, definitely, from a Jewish point of view, the man, it says that Adam lost his rib and he's got to go and find it. And it's definitely much more beneficial when everybody knows, what the male and female role is and what people feel more comfortable. That doesn't mean that there isn't a whole world out there of people who are trying it in a different way. But all you could do is you could ask. And anybody who's reasonable and wants a relationship should follow suit. And if they won't, then your value system is too different and you can't. But there's no question that most women that I know are actually more comfortable when they're not, as my one client says, when she's not driving it, she feels more comfortable. Driving. She often feels she has to drive the relationship.
That's right.
And when she's not driving it, she feels more comfortable.
So they need to get in the driver's seat.
Yeah. But men, Shmuley Batayach says we live in a generation of broken men. They do not know how to be men anymore. And that he's talking a lot about this lately, that women have broken men. They do not know what to do.
Yeah, so we have to become their mothers and patch them back together again.
It's
So
instead of being
because
honest.
if women ask men out, they are desperate, and men have to be the driver's seat because.
Do you think so?
What did you say, darling?
I think it's a very individual thing, what you're comfortable with. It's very individual. But culturally and on a whole, what Shmuley Batayach is talking about is not just individuals. There's a whole lot. He talks about very successful women in their 30s and 40s and men who are having real issues about relating to them and who feel very inadequate. We don't have answers yet, but it has become this way. Women have become more powerful. They've come into their own in the last few generations. And it's not so simple. The laws.
I think the secular equivalent of going on a ship, right? If you are not privileged enough, and I mean that, if you're not privileged enough to have grown up into that system, right? I think the secular equivalent of going on a ship is just, it's being forthright and honest. And if you do meet someone that you think I can have a committed relationship with, you're saying, it doesn't matter who says it first, because it's like you're on that meeting and you're setting the rules down. So it doesn't really matter if it's the woman or the man, you're asking the same things.
And that's the other slide that was forgotten, and I realized as I did it, and that's about communication. And that's a huge one. It's all about communicating and stating expectations. Nobody knows what the other person is thinking about. And being able to communicate what you want and what you need is really, really important, and not to feel inhibited to do that. That's really important. And that's really the test, how the person responds to that communication.
That's why instead of sending SMS to each other, just talk to each other.
Yes.
Change the subject very
Sure.
quickly. Your very first part of this talk, you talked about people wanting to be happy and get on with life, not having children till after they've had their happiness. Why can't we be happy when we're young and be with somebody and grow on that relationship until you're a little older? Why must you be on your own? Why can't you meet somebody at say 19 or 20 or 21 and be with that person, married in a relationship, but still be happy? You don't have to have kids until later on.
That's right. That's right.
And then you grow up that step by step. So okay, the first 6 months of being married is a whole learning process, but then you grow to respect each other, you grow to love each other, you grow to have children and have the joint expectations of each other. And you go through life, I find now, girls are like 40 before they have their kids. They haven't got time, and they've had their good times, but with who? With themselves. I mean, they should have had that good time with their children, with their, when they're 50 or 60, they should have their grandchildren to have fun with. Life should be a long
And that's
time.
what I was saying, absolutely, that the point is that why can't people be together from when they're young and have fun together? And that's what I was saying earlier, that in our generation, being single and autonomous and independent is valued up there, and people feel foolish that they want to get married young. They sort of apologize. Sorry we're getting married young, or sorry we're traveling together. Because I know couples who are in relationships but they travel separately. That's very accepted now. So for most of the year we're together, but then 3 months a year, we go overseas and do our own thing. You can't really build a relationship on that, because fun is being on your own or meeting other people.
When you're young, you grow up together. I mean, there are some people
Or grow apart together.
Yes, I'm just saying there are some people that do. But if you work on the relationship, you don't grow
If you
apart.
both work on the relationship, not if he's working on the secretary.
No, but then that's right.
But I want to answer you like this. I'm psychoanalytically trained, and they say this, and it's really, really true. Again, after 30 years, I can say this. The first 5 minutes of meeting someone, you really know nearly everything you need to know about them. Not on this level, because this is your unconscious you pick up.
Okay.
And what you will find, absolutely,
Smells.
that you will pick up in some way, the way they are in that first 5 minutes, you really know. And often people say, I knew that on my first date, or I didn't like that about them in the beginning, but I rationalized it away. And that's how powerful the unconscious is, really. So it's about back to being intuitive some of the time. What really is your body telling you? What are you really seeing? What are you afraid to bring to the party?
But then maybe you're high maintenance and you just discount them because they're short, or because they're bald, because she's not blonde. Maybe
It's not on that level, it's more on the level of emotional needs.
and you can tell in 5
They
minutes.
say that, yeah. Not that you know it,
No.
but often there's a discomfort, and you'll hear when people are rationalizing. Have you seen the movie He's Just Not That Into You? Where she keeps saying, I think he really likes me, and the friend's like, yes, he does, and she's looking for all this talk and rationalization, but she's asking for reassurance because she knows that it really isn't.
You've got to go back to the good old-fashioned days where you take a girl out. She couldn't care whether you're a dustman or whatever you are, as long as you're a good player. And give her a good kiss. And
Back to basics.
Be a man about it, not fiddle about it.
Yeah, it's really important, but I think this is it. It's really about knowing who you are, and then being able to state your expectations, and then see whether the other person can step up to that or not. It's really important. Any more? Can I end there? Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.